Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Downtown Management Commission meeting. It is 4 o'clock, September 24th, 2024, and I will start our roll call. Erica Dahl,
Present.
Justin Calvin,
Present.
Andy Nathan,
Present.
Dawn Poe,
Here.
Stephanie Trees. Here. And I will turn our meeting over to our chair, Commissioner Trees.
Thank you, Lisa. May I have a motion to approve the July 16 meeting minutes?
Approval of the minutes. I'll second.
Okay, preferred.
If you want to take a vote, that would understand, I'll make sure everybody's on the same page. Aye.
May I have the vote, please? Aye.
Aye. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next procedural item is elections. First, would you help us manage those?
Sure, we only received one nomination via email, I believe.
There were two.
Oh, there were two.
Yep.
Well, one email nomination, but yes, one email with nominations, one for chair, one for vice chair, but swapping roles between you and Val. But you're all welcome to make nominations, right? Second nomination for Don as the chair.
Yes, second.
Yeah. Another set.
Any other nominations for anyone else?
All right, so our slate is Don for chair, Stephanie for vice chair, so if anybody wants to move that slate, those positions.
Did you move to a vote? Did you want to make a speech?
Can it be like Dwight in the office? Would it be like Mussolini? No. Well, I have gotten to, just an update on some of the things, because I think it does pertain to the board just a little bit. I was able to meet with, the woman who was the marketing, person at the Limelight, and I was able to connect her to Chris and to Bettina, and so I'm really excited to be able to bring that, connection to the Limelight to more of the city. She did some of the meetings and stuff like that, but did you get to chat with her? Bettina, did you get to meet with, great? And then also at the city of Boulder had the get out. I don't want to say get out Boulder, but that's not the right term.
Now that you said it, I can, what's up, Boulder?
What's up,
Yeah.
Boulder? What's up?
I love get out.
But I was at that, I was able to connect with, where the name escapes me right now, but she connected me with, Cynthia Elam, who
Carolyn.
Carol,
Yep.
you know, who, because I was inquiring about some of the stuff that's going on with the electrification of downtown and how that's gonna impact, and so she wrote an email, and I can submit that all to you, but I didn't want to submit it one-on-one to all of you without permission and stuff like that. But so I even saw her on one of the invites. So she might even be here.
No, an information item is provided in your packet.
And she provided extra information beyond what was in the packet. So I could send that to Lisa to distribute to everyone else, just so that everyone has it, but I didn't do it for like.
Sorry.
But so those are a few of the things I've been working on, try to bring the DMC out a little bit on that information. But so anyways, we should, well, it feels weird for me.
I can give a speech too. So Don and I talked about this in advance. And I think we had felt like we worked together well as a team. We have been splitting up, going to certain meetings. I call it the Betina's meeting, even though it has another name. Hopefully as much as I can monthly. Don, we kind of split between us. We've been recently communicating a little bit more outside of the structure. And I see Don's enthusiasm for doing more above and beyond outside of the commission. We have our monthly planning meetings too that we both go to. I personally felt that I wasn't able to do that much outside of the pre-existing meeting structure, and thought Don, has some extra bandwidth and interest in doing some more outside stuff. And I thought it made sense for him to step into this role for the next year or however long we do this for, and for me to support in that and be more of a backup. So,
And Eric, I reached out to you today through your website because I don't have your email address.
oh,
But I just love to, I know Andy, I know your email.
I don't even check my email.
But I've tried to in the past, just like kind of talk to everyone individually, just to get a sense of kind of what motivates everyone individually, so I'd love to just catch you.
Okay. But no, chickens.
okay,
So
I
you need
just
to vote.
wanted to know,
yeah,
and since, unless hopefully we don't lose anybody from the existing terms, according to this, this would be our slate until 2026. So, we wouldn't, unless it's determined that we want to, since the team will be the same until we lose 3 folks in 2026. This would be right. So,
So we would vote.
say aye to both those things. Say aye.
there's a formal
I,
voting instruction.
probably.
Yeah. Should we go towards a vote? Move towards a
A
vote?
motion and a
Motion.
motion, a second and a vote. Second the vote.
Motion to vote.
Well, I thought you were motion. So
Sorry.
typically, the
They can't
candidates do
motion.
not
We
make a
can't, we need
motion
someone to
for.
make a motion to vote, so you would like to make a
I
motion?
would like to make a motion to vote.
I'll second it. The motion to vote
For this slate.
for this slate.
Great. So the motion, sounds like the motion on the table is for Don to be chair and Stephanie to be vice chair. And if there's a second. A second. So there we got a second and now you can take a vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Right.
opposed, no one opposed. Okay.
Great.
It's official.
And now you're welcome to continue, but typically we don't necessarily have to hand the meeting over to Don for this meeting unless he's prepared and if you'd like to.
I'm prepared, so are you also prepared?
Whatever you want, but feel free. to-
I think, did you leave the last meeting? I think I'll do this one since I'm prepared. Okay, so next. We have the item of Downtown Boulder Partnership Board of Directors, DMC ex officio representative.
Yes, so Bettina made us aware, Community Vitality, that there is a spot for an ex officio position on the DBP board.
Correct.
So I know that Stephanie, you've been attending the DBP meetings. But we can make a DMC member official on the DBP board. So we put this on the agenda for you all to take a motion and take action to make someone's presence on that board official as a representative.
And what does that mean, official member of the board?
So it would be an ex officio non-voting.
Okay.
But it would give you insight into some of the advocacy roles that the DBP Board of Directors takes. So the meetings that you've been attending are joint meetings of the partnership and the business improvement district. So we would be asking you to join business meetings of the partnership as well.
And are,
Be an additional 30 minutes every other month.
is it similar, is it at the same time as that meeting?
It's at the same time, it's just.
You just stay 30 minutes later? Oh, you come 30 minutes early, okay. Okay. And it's only every other time,
Yes.
okay.
So the next meeting for this would be November 14th.
Okay, so do we vote?
We need a majority vote for
Okay,
the recommended.
well, since I already, I guess I should say whether I want to do it or not, since I already go to those meetings. Minus last meeting, I think it makes sense, I think I'm the only one who actually is available, well, at least of the 3 of us to go to that meeting. And, or at least that was the case, and I go to them, so I'd be happy to do that.
So can I move to make you the DMC ex officio?
Before I do that, I just want to welcome them of the new members too.
Oh.
And make sure that Erica, you've been on the board before, and you're new, but I just don't want to, while you have my full support, Stephanie, I want to hear from everyone as to like, if either one of you would also just be out of fairness, so, you know, if you have interest.
I'm.
Yeah, well, also perhaps, is this a big rotating function? The board, because like, I think so, I've been like going to them maybe for a year now. And I'm not like wanting to stay in this indefinitely, like I like how we cycled. And if we're allowed to cycle, I think the nice thing is like, probably you two should, I can accept the position now. You two can start going to those meetings and you can occasionally see what it's like. And then like, if you express interest in wanting to do it, I'd be happy to like bring it up here and, you know, come to a vote again. I think it's gonna be hard to probably just jump into stuff without knowing any context. Unless we wanna put it off, but that's the other.
Just report back everything.
That is the other.
There's a lot of
responsibility.
duplications of information, but yes, I think we have a standing, we had a standing meeting, a standing item on the agenda. Sure, and now that it's a more official thing, we definitely should have it as
Yep.
a more formal report.
But I move for Stephanie to be our ex officio for this time being, and potentially rotate that.
Second that.
Would you vote? All in favor of Stephanie being ex officio? Say aye. Aye. One day we'll have it down.
Robert rules are,
Yeah.
but they're good.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Bettina. The opportunity, okay.
But when is the meeting? Just in-
Oh, yeah, it's the second Thursday of each month from 8:30 to 9:30 AM, right? The next one,
It'll be from 8 to 9:30.
oh, but yeah, for me, but the general meeting is from 8:30 to 9:30.
Correct.
And the next one is the town hall.
Stealing my thunder.
Sorry, but don't, yeah, the next one is the town hall.
Okay,
Probably a good one to go to, but
yeah.
I'm stealing
Can we all go
the
to the town hall? We're allowed to?
Yeah, as long as you don't all sit next to each other and whisper in each other's ears a lot.
What about we said every other person?
Yeah.
So it's to be allowed.
Okay, I will not steal your thunder on that. Okay. So the second Thursday of each. So the next item on the agenda is public participation. Do we have any members of the public present?
Not have any public.
Okay. We can move next to the consent agenda. So these topics will not be discussed unless there are questions posed by the commission. I'll give folks some time to scroll down to the consent agenda. May take a little while.
I had a question on page 12, the Spruce Garage Public Art Project. They've been working closely with the engineer. Is this just an update on the one that we kind of had input on a while ago over at?
Yes. Matt, do you have any additional context you'd like to provide?
No, I don't have any updates. It's that project, but there's still the engineering phase, so as soon as they're out that.
Well, I just want to make sure it was the same thing
Yeah.
that we knew.
One, I went back and looked and I think, well, things, projects take a long time, but I think we decided in like 2022, so it's going to be probably 3 years. And that, is that a, like, the complexity of the engineering work itself seems kind of unique in this scenario compared to like mural work.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that this is a good thing to think about.
At the same time, we have some structural repairs we're gonna be making.
Got it,
So
okay,
we don't wanna do something that then needs to be removed and we're gonna do structural repairs, so we're trying to make sure that it's all. So it is taking a little bit longer than we
okay,
originally planned, but.
and the work can only be done in certain seasons too, I know. Because of the nature, but at least that's kind of, no, maybe. Got it, okay, that was one of my questions too.
I also want to note that we don't have an agenda item for like Placer AI or the Q2 economic indicators. Both of those items were provided as information only. If there are any questions that you have about those, we're happy to consider that as well.
I had a more of a comment, comment question on the Roots project. We did a music project. Who owns that from the city? Reagan.
So I'm overseeing that work, Commissioner Trees.
I forgot that we were doing this, I think because I just feel like I haven't heard a lot about it, and I'm just. It was more of a just like, before a lot of people know about it, I feel like it's hard to see if something's gonna be successful. So I was curious about what other ways we can like just help people get more aware for a very long time in advance about when things happen, so they don't miss them. Because I feel like everyone knows about Band on the Bricks, but I talked to other people in the community and they don't read or get the emails, and they just they miss out on all this stuff. So it's just a bigger thing. Even the sip and stroll, like I heard about it from the packet, and I work on East Pearl, and I was like, oh no, like what if people don't hear about it? Like, so one of my questions was like, how do we get the public like more aware way far in advance? Just so it's like becomes part of just what they do. I know that takes a long time, but it's like that for Band on the Bricks. It happens every summer. You don't exactly know when and what. So like these other new things that you're working on, I want people to hear about them, but I feel like I hear about them kind of late too.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback. Thank you. That's something we'll take into consideration if we continue to work with them. I will say the 3 events on the Hill that have already occurred were super successful. We saw over 1,000 attendees collectively between the 3 events on the Hill event street. And then the final event is actually this Saturday in Boulder Junction from 4 to 9 p.m. in Depot Square. But that's great feedback. Thank you. And something we'll definitely work on our outreach efforts for future events, maybe leaning more on our community partners and whatnot.
Yeah, maybe like I think you're saying they're still successful, even if a lot of people don't know about them. Maybe it's more like local attendance versus. So that's good to hear, but.
Yeah, and while we in Community Vitality have vested interest in
Yeah,
produced events being super successful, we also
not your
not
job.
necessarily, well.
Yeah.
We have, yes, we have a vested interest in these things being successful because we do contribute funds, but thinking about the grants as an example of the Arts Commission. Where we grant out to entities who are putting on their own whatever. And while we certainly encourage them and want them to do a great job of marketing whatever it is that they're doing. At least partially with resources that we've distributed to them. It's not necessarily our thing
Yeah,
to
got it.
tell them to do, but we do try to get the word out as much as possible through newsletters and our regular communication venues. For this and everything else that we support with resources. That we have.
Does anyone have any additional questions about the consent agenda? Okay, now, if not, we can move to fund financials. Same thing here. It won't be discussed unless there are questions by the commission on fund financials.
One quick question. It says sales tax by location downtown. I assume that means all Cajun. What is downtown in this definition? Page 14.
Elliot's out sick today, so normally just,
Comment.
yes, exactly. Page 14.
Maybe what I'm talking about here is on downtown, revenue downtown is increased
Oh, yeah,
10%.
yeah.
May over last year, whereas Pearl Street has gone down 2.5%, 2.25%. And so I just was like,
Yeah, so
what's going on?
we
with
have
Pearl Street
geographic
versus downtown?
right, so there's a geographic boundary that finance uses to analyze all the businesses within certain geographic boundaries. So from all of downtown, it's looking slightly up. But if you just look at businesses along Pearl Street, and I'll need to confirm with Elliot whether that's, Pearl Street Mall. It is a different story.
But the growth is coming from the east end and the west end. right?
Yeah, well,
Or
it's
the
all,
surroundings.
it's pretty much
All
all,
of downtown
so
applicated, okay,
some of the things that,
Got it.
you know, when there are spaces that have been vacant for some time and then got new things moving in, is gonna make that fluctuate quite a bit. We saw that happen with the alfalfa space when, you know, there was some backlog, the sales tax that didn't come in, so there are some fluctuations that happen year over year. I think we'll probably hear a little bit more from Bettina on how things are going downtown. The first, part of the year was slower. 2023 was very, very strong. The first part of this year was not nearly as strong as what we saw last year, but things, at least from our measures, have been moving. So we'll hope that at the end of the year, we'll see these numbers.
they map the sales tax revenue to the east end, west end, and like Pearl Street Mall.
They do break all those out,
Could
yes.
we see that breakout in the future?
Sure.
Okay, is that interesting to anyone else?
Yes.
And it's not quite east end, west end,
Okay.
it's more east downtown, but
Okay,
we will break out whatever finance has been for us.
That'd be nice.
thanks. Another question I had on page 13. Where was it? Under use of funds, under economic vitality and district management. So it seems like that this year is like a more expensive year for use of funds, then it goes back down again. Am I reading that right for the,
Let's see, for economic vitality specific.
that's like staff of the department?
Yeah,
So that is,
so there's.
Yeah.
Well, there's,
1.4, 2.4, 2.7.
So these are different, the different work divisions of the department. There's the actuals, so that's probably what you're saying is there is
Yeah.
what
One
we
is
actually
office,
spent,
one's
so whenever we have vacancies, which we've had over the past number of years,
Okay.
then we underspend what was actually budgeted.
okay,
We see what's adopted is what we had anticipated that we'd spend.
yeah,
And then as a result of taking a look at trends over time, our 2025 recommended is going down in that area because we hadn't been spending if salaries are anticipated to come in at that level. So just looking
okay,
at the past, it's reflecting in where we think our target should be in the future.
so what is what's that revised category mean then?
That means whatever we're now anticipating is going to be the end of the year. So there's what's adopted by council in October,
Okay,
then revised means after the first and second adjustment to base. Depending on additional expenses that we've had in that specific area,
okay,
that leads to the revised amount.
So you're tracking, because there's no actuals in 2024, you're tracking less than adopted.
Correct.
And that's why 2025 recommended is kind of like where you more are right now.
Correct.
So there's the way 2025 is closer to what's actually.
And so, and
Yeah.
Elliot would be able to specifically tell you exactly where things moved around, because it's really looking at the total uses of funds over time. We did some shifting around with things like the EcoPass program, putting some resources in some, because we weren't spending as much as we had been, because RTD's fares have gone down. We shifted some of those resources to other funds. And also expanded the level of service that we provide for the EcoPass to part-time employees. We do have some slides that will speak to that a little bit in matter sheets.
so, yeah, this framework's a little bit not intuitive for me, so I apologize, a revised adopted thing, I'm just not used to it. But similarly for the customer service, so for the garages, I remember when we working with Metropolis, that was going to hopefully decrease customer service spend
For credit card fees, yes.
for credit card. So we are showing like a recommended drop, like to 618. That would reflect the difference there probably.
Yes, although
Okay.
we do still have some credit card fees. And again, wish Ellie was here to see.
So that's the project, that's like what we recommend based on those efficiencies versus the difference between like the 750 or 769 and the 618 is some of those projected savings.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
So the customer service is credit card fees, not the people working in booths.
So
Or is it combined? Because they're not
That's
gone.
that. So yeah, the people in the booths are gone, but we still sell permits out of the front desk area, part of their salary. A big portion of their salary is paid for through agent. The majority of our permit revenues are from agent.
Any additional questions on the budget?
We will, when Elliot's feeling better, if there's any follow-up, I'll have it listen to my responses. And if we've done anything wrong, we will let you know.
Thank you. Okay, up next is Bettina for a 15-minute update from the Downtown Boulder Partnership.
Great, well, thanks so much for having me today. I know it says my name is Terry on the agenda, but I was at the International Downtown Association Conference in Seattle with Chris and Elliot, Cindy, and a number of people from Community Vitality. It was really cool to have such a great component of the city of Boulder at that conference. We came back with lots of fresh ideas and never tired from all of that learning and engagement. So I've got a slide deck here, and if you go to the next slide, is there a clicker or do I just have to?
Lisa will.
Lisa's my clicker?
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is a little bit small. Hopefully you can see it on your screen. We've been tracking our monthly pedestrian counts. So we have the totals for July and August here. And one of the focuses that we're going to be really working on over the coming months is how to integrate this data from the pedestrian counters, which are gathered from cameras that are actually located at specific locations and then synthesized by a program called Springboard. How this compares to the numbers and the data that we're getting from Placer AI, right? So we know that they are capturing data in different ways, and there's always a bit of analysis that needs to be done to understand what is perception versus what is reality. So you can see in July, we were down 0.2% from 24 to 23. It was a little bit hotter in July, which might have had something to do with it. And then in August, we were actually up 2%. So nobody knows why. It's not a specific science, but it is super helpful for us to be able to see this data, especially when it comes to getting sponsors and generating interest for some of our community events. Like in July, we had the Pearl Street Arts Fest, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Any questions on the pedestrian counts? Next slide. So speaking of the Pearl Street Arts Fest, we had a very successful season with this. I think I saw some of you there. I know I personally spent a lot of money at the booths, and this is something that the artists really enjoy. They come back year after year. We have people from Texas, New Mexico. Some folks come as far away as California to attend this event, and we had really good visitor engagement. So this was by far the most popular traffic day of the year. And these are some of the figures that we share with our sponsors. We had some good open studios, children's activities, and it was just a really fun and vibrant time downtown. And
Does
then
that
next,
mostly help restaurants, or does it help retail as well? Or does it hurt retail because people are all, we get a lot of people, it's kind of like the same thing with some of the other events where we get a lot of people, but they're not necessarily in the stores.
you know, getting a lot of people, but they're not going to the stores has been a theme that we've been hearing a lot of lately. I think for events like this, it actually does help everybody just to have more people downtown. And particularly when they're spending money at an artist booth, they might be more interested in wandering into a shop and they're buying a dress that might go with the new jewelry they bought. For
Going into the
example.
air conditioning, a brief moment.
So Erica, do you see that? for
Yeah,
events?
I mean, so I'm also on the marketing committee, so I hear a lot of this as well. And I always find it very interesting because I think the point is to create an overall positive feeling of downtown. And then people want to keep coming and shopping, and not every single event is about me and about spending money at my store. So I think it's like, we have to remember that downtown's for everybody and that you should be able to go and do things that don't cost money. So I think I think it's great because if people have a great experience coming to the Arts Fest, it's like. They're like, we like downtown Boulder, we have done some fun things there. But it is also one of my better weekends. So I think.
How's it work for you?
About the same. We're busy just because it's a weekend,
Right,
you know, so I don't think that it affects us really. We maybe see a little bit more kind of turn on the bigger events across the street, things like that, but when it's on Pearl Street like this, it's more people there.
The goal is to get people downtown because then they will shop, enjoy services, buy drinks, do all of the things, and also just look around and see what's
Right,
new
be
the
reminded.
next time they come downtown.
Yeah,
So
I
visit
appreciate you
this.
bringing up that point, Erica, because I think we all are downtown a lot, we used to, but some people you read in these surveys, they're like, I don't come downtown, and I'm like,
right,
so sometimes you need excuses for people who don't otherwise come down to be reminded about how great downtown is.
right.
And maybe this is one of the things that appeals to them, if they like art, maybe something else appeals to them. And the idea is to also get people coming back who just kind of perhaps even stopped coming in the COVID era, and like, we should kind of bring them back into the fold.
Drag my teenager.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, make the
Awesome.
teenagers suffer, they'll be
Right.
better off for it. If you go on to the next slide, we can talk about some other events, Bands on the Bricks came up, that we had a wonderful season, 8 weeks of free summer concerts. We really recognized that when we partnered with other organizations, we had a better turnout, so we were partnering with Rocky Mountain Equality, we had Pride Night, we had CU Night, that's why there's a picture of Chip, with our reminders, we had a great season, and, we did see some good visitation as well, so
Is that
that's
because
the
you hit their
same.
mailing list, or what is it that's,
Is it because what?
you can hit their mailing list, or what is the benefit you get from that?
It's sort of co-promotion, right? So if there's a built-in audience, for CU Night in particular, there was an event honoring, Chancellor Phil Stefano at the Boulder Theater, and so we encourage people who were at that event to then come out. It's the same thing if we have, multiple different, athletic teams representing at the Stampede versus just one type of sporting event.
Are the bands typically local?
They're from Colorado. They're all Colorado bands. Yeah. So that's just some more pedestrian impressions there. And then if you go to the next slide. We had our Fall Fest, and that was just last weekend. Unfortunately, my data cruncher who understands how to read the pedestrian count data, is out sick because apparently everyone's out sick right now. That's what's happening these days. But Fall Fest is another example of a beloved institution. This one's really geared at bringing out families, and we partnered with Firefly Handmade Market. So we don't have to curate or jury in the different providers who are bringing their stuff, but Firefly Market does. So it was a success. We did have a little bit of a downturn in terms of our bar sales, and that's how we make a little bit of money. So we're going to be evaluating ways to maybe judge up that event a little bit more for next year. It was also very hot, so it kind of felt like it wasn't really Fall Fest because it was 85 degrees and we're all wearing sundresses.
I keep thinking about that that's coming up. Really never, I was going to that stuff. Doesn't feel like fall.
Right.
All of this week.
That's right.
Yeah.
We were also up against the Rocky Mountain Showdown football game that took a lot of attention away. There were just myriad other events that were happening throughout the community. The What's Up Boulder event, I think, was also that weekend, and there were just a lot of different activities. So we'll be looking at that, but nevertheless, people had a great time, and it's fun to see people bring out, like, this group of people brought out their bespoke telescope, and they were letting anybody look at pictures of the film.
Can I ask, is that the event that also has the Oktoberfest within it, or? No.
I think it used to, we don't
Okay.
market it that way anymore.
Okay,
but
That's,
one
it's
point-
interesting, because like I heard of this as like an event more like, oh, there's a kid, like there's kid stuff, but it was really hot that day, which I made a lot of other plans. But I remember pre-kids, we go to this for the Oktoberfest beer garden in particular, whereas I'm not really interested in shopping as much. So I'm curious about if the change in the like marketing also impacts people
Yeah.
going to like have the Oktoberfest like beer hall experience, which it used to be a little bit more like that.
I think beer festivals in general have kind of peaked a
Yeah.
little bit in terms of just the general market. So like I said, we'll be evaluating internally and looking for other organizations to partner with to make it more representative of what the community really wants to celebrate. If you could go to the next slide. These are just some advocacy and connections work that we've been doing behind the scenes. Unfortunately, there are continued power outages. There were 2 in the month of August, one that affected the west end of Pearl, and then another one that affected the Hill. We oversee, while we're not actually administering the district on the Hill, we do have ambassadors who work up on the Hill. So we work really closely with those businesses, and we've been working with the chamber, some of the departments of the city who are working on their Wildfire Protection Act. And now the Public Utility Commission is launching an investigation into Xcel to figure out what they can do to maybe mitigate these issues going forward. But this has taken a lot of time and energy, no pun intended. We also had a meeting with the East End businesses because, as I sort of intimated earlier, we are hearing from folks that they might be seeing a lot of people downtown, but they're not necessarily carrying bags and or spending as much. So in order to be responsive to that, we had a meeting with the East End businesses, and that's where we came up with this idea for the Sip and Stroll, which will be taking place this Saturday. We've got some great participation from local businesses offering mocktails. Those organizations and businesses that have liquor licenses are going to do drink specials, shopping specials. And we're hoping that if this is successful, it'll be something that the East End can take on and do maybe every other month or on a quarterly basis. I'll let you know at the next meeting how that went. We organized a flash mob to welcome the Sundance Institute to town. That was super fun, and it was great news last week. We heard that we're one of 3 finalists for the role of host city for Sundance, which would be just a wonderful thing. And
Final decision.
it's probably not until after this year's festival. That way they'll be able to say, hey, we've made a decision, and then they'll have their last one in Park City before they come to us. Just putting that out there.
Park City is one of the 3.
Yeah.
Right, which would be like a lot of work.
Right. Yeah, but it might be a little lackluster if they said, oh, and we're moving to Boulder, and then,
Yeah.
but come to our festival next month. We don't know that they're going to choose us. I'm just
So
choosing.
you think they're gonna, in
Yeah.
2025, they're gonna tell us, the
Yes.
packet said 2026, and I was like.
They're gonna say after Sundance 2025, which I don't know when that is,
I think
but
it's
after
February.
Sundance 2025, they're gonna ask. That's right.
And the third choice is Atlanta.
No, it's
No,
no.
Cincinnati, and I'm sorry. but just that's-
I did get in a conversation with some of the staff from downtown Cincinnati when I was at the conference, and so we sort of have a bit of a boxing moment. And in line also with some of the conversations we've had with people about their concerns over lower sales. We did have a special meeting for a select group of retailers. So we're talking about holiday programming. Thanks to Community Vitality, we are going to be purchasing some more holiday lights that'll make this more engaging and more interactive, fun place to bring people during the holiday months. And just looking at ways to increase local visitation overall. And then we completed the Intercept survey, and so it's actually over now. We got over 700 responses at the beginning of the season. We thought we weren't going to be able to hit that target because it was a very long survey. And you can hear about those results at the October 10th town hall. If you can go to the next slide, Lisa.
Are you doing the AR thing again this year?
Yes, we are. And actually, we're partnering with Reality Mint, which is a local company. And we're going to be doing the Find Freezy initiative where people can go and it'll be a virtual reality instead of a physical object. So that'll be fun to see what they come up with. We have the TiVo train running. Interesting data point. We were down. This is one of the most adorable things that we do on the.
We
Pearl
do it a
Street.
lot.
So Stephanie's family was responsible for a
Right.
big.
We
piece of
didn't
this
come that
pie.
1 week.
But again, I think this is one of those things where if you know about it, then you know how amazing it is, but if
Yeah.
you don't know, you just don't know. So we're like thinking about ways to improve communication around that. We've got good data on where people are coming from. So this really is an activity for local families, but we're also seeing visitation from other visitors as well. It is done now, though. It'll be returning as the Polar Express, in December for a couple of days, weather dependent. Or sorry, not the Polar Express, because that is a trademarked name. It is the Snowflake Express. And on the next slide, just
Super recorded, very snarky, joke.
This meeting's being recorded.
I'll tell you later.
an update on our ambassadors. So I was really happy with all the questions that you guys all asked last time I was here when I presented our second quarter report. And since I gave you that report and you asked such wonderful follow-up questions, the ambassador reporting system, which is called the SMART system, is undergoing a massive upgrade. So Lucky Boulder, we and I think 6 or 7 other cities across the country are now part of this tech upgrade. And as you all know, anytime there's a system update, sometimes it's fantastic and sometimes you just don't know how things are going. So I don't have as robust figures for you this time. But we did get some good news this week that we're gonna have good apples to apples figures from the old system into the new system data, which was what I was concerned about because we've really been focusing on the reporting this year. We've been really focusing on weeding and on the tree grapes and doing a lot of work with the city arborist and also just with the city staff to make sure that we're keeping the sidewalks as clean as possible. I did want to give a little shout out to our team. Last Thursday night, there was a big effort by some people who are doing graffiti. They did 12 different pieces all around downtown, including on the mall, on trash cans, on benches, on windows. And our team was able to clean everything up within about 9 hours. So that's one of those examples of the work being invisible, right? Because if you saw all of those pieces of graffiti, you would be pretty upset. But if you don't see them, that means that somebody was there to clean it up.
You paint over Smile?
No, never.
Yeah.
Let Smile be?
Let Smile be.
Mine's not.
Smile is not graffiti. This is other more incendiary political messages.
I have a smile.
You know, even the USPS doesn't paint over Smile. The federal mail recognizes that that's. Again, recorded line. I can't speak on you. United States Postal Service. Don't do it.
National.
We're also just doing a bunch of work on the ambassador level to really make sure that the trash and recycling bins are clean and well appointed. You can go to the next slide. I can show you some before and after. There's an example of the kind of graffiti that we take away and some of the messes that we clean up. So I hope that you, as you're out there wandering around, not wandering around, having a lovely stroll through downtown, if you ever see an issue, please do report it to our ambassadors. They are as present as they can be, but we really do rely on the public and our community partners to report these as well. On the next slide, coming up, so
Question on ambassadors.
Yes.
An issue happened in the building between where we are, where they had a broken window. Does ambassadors help with putting up wood in the broken windows?
you know, we don't, for the simple reason that we do not have wood. We don't have the supplies for that. So I know that can be a tricky thing, especially if a window is broken like late at night when McGuckins isn't open, you don't have access to that. I'm not quite sure what the protocol is.
I told them to reach out to the ambassadors to see who at least they would recommend to get it done, because I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, you are the property owner, right? So
For my place, yeah.
for your place. Is it your building?
It wasn't our
It was
place,
in between us.
and I think actually I think it was the owners ended up putting up the wood, but they didn't really clean up the glass. And they cleaned it on their own property, but they were still, so, but I think it would be, I mean, it's funny, we proactively did ask. These would be good to have some solution in the event that this happens. So we were actually gonna talk to the guy with the door, I can't remember the door company in Buffalo or something, Buffalo Lock, and see if maybe they have a recommendation. But it'd be good for us to have like a solution to that.
Totally. And just to clarify, if there's broken glass on the ground, the ambassadors can clean that up. They just don't have the materials to put up a broken window. It's a great question.
They came and weeded like 4 days after I weeded. I was like a
Thank you. Well, the thing about weeds is they grow back.
Oh.
There's even an expression about it. It's like that, yeah. So we're super excited about this Saturday, in addition to the sip and stroll, with Community Vitality support, we have some locally made Adirondack chairs that are gonna be art pieces. And we have, 5 artists who were selected by a jury, and they're gonna be doing, yeah, thank you, that's right.
From the Galapagos.
Oh, you on the block. Wow, that's.
I know,
volunteer
that's
leadership
commitment,
right
I
there.
know.
Thank you for your service. So we'll be having live painting going on from 9 AM to 7 PM. And then starting next month, the public will have a chance to vote on their favorite chair as part of this community art project. And then the winners will get a cash prize. So that'll be very fun.
Thank you, Lane.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, Lane. There's a special auction. I just got an email today about this, the Smile auctions going live on Thursday. On the next slide.
Can I ask about this? So this is the first time I'm hearing about, well, the fact, the sip and stroll, is the idea is like the first time's a little bit more organic to just see if people show up and then like how people like it, and then you
Yeah.
mentioned before. I work on the, I just said, maybe I just rely on physical signs more, but like, I think I didn't hear about it, and I was like, oh shoot, I made other plans, I wish I could go. But is the idea that people kind of hear about it and then maybe they come to the next one if it works?
Yeah, and I want to be very clear that
Yeah.
this, we put this together very quickly.
Okay.
So this came together in about a month, really, a month and a half maybe
Okay.
at the max. So it didn't have the same kind of lead time for a lot of our downtown Boulder Community Initiative events where we have everything planned out a year in advance. We're really hoping and asking the retailers in particular to be the ones who are sharing this.
Got it, okay.
It's not a ticketed event. We don't have any kind of income coming from it. It's really just about getting people to come into the shops. So we did get support for the Community Chair Project, which is another kind of bonus add. This is in many ways a response to the fact that we heard, because Boulderthon is also this weekend, that when Boulderthon puts up the no parking signs, which are a requirement to clear the streets, sometimes people think, oh, I can't park there, even though the date is written on the no parking sign. So this was an incentive to try to create an opportunity for people to come down, despite there being a perception that you can't park and that you can't be in that distance. That was a really long answer, but.
That's good context. Yeah, so it's a bit of an experiment, but you're wanting to kind of say, we heard you, and then them to take the initiative. Yeah.
Cause it's not, it's like, there's no event for the rest of us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and like, we pay our dues too, kind of things. This is
Yeah.
sort of like an olive branch. To be like, we hear that it's, you know, and the pedestrian count numbers show that traffic is down on that end. So it was kind of like, what is
Yeah.
something we could do special for you guys, but it wasn't budgeted last
Yeah.
year, so.
And the vacancy rate is a little bit higher on the east end than it is in the west end. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I hope it's successful. We'll be doing a survey of all of the participating retailers and restaurants afterward to see if it helped boost them. And then coming up, we have World Singing Day on October 19th. We will actually be running this event next year. So this is the last year that the independent organizers are going to be doing it. I just sponsored a song, so I would love it if you all can come. The song that I sponsored is We Built This City. So I know you all know that one. And then October 31st, we have our Munchkin Masquerade from 3 to 6. So we are looking for volunteer crossing guards to help us get all of the problems and rules to and from their street status. And I think that might be the end of our deck. Is that correct, Lisa?
Yes.
Yes. So one last commercial I'd love to give you is to please come to our town hall on October 10th. And we'd love to see you there. We'll be getting an update on the Intercept survey. Elliot will also be giving an overview of some of the Placer AI data. And I'll be doing an update just kind of on all things downtown. Any other questions?
What's the feedback on the Stampede so far? Just the traffic, positive or?
The first one was pretty low, I think because it was a Thursday, but last Friday was just bananas. And it was really cool because we had the Brazilian festival on the courthouse lawn right before it. So starting at 5 o'clock, going until about 8 o'clock, it was just it was a real scene downtown. So I hope you saw the impact in your business. That's great. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a team.
Eric, where's your store?
Savvy.
Sorry.
Okay, so let's shift to the matters from staff. It looks like
Thank you.
that, you want to take that one?
I will take it from here for matters from staff. First, just want to share some follow-up from the last conversation we had about budget. Where you all approved community vitality's recommendations. They then went through the city process and received the city manager's recommended budget. Just wanted to point out a few shifts that happened through that process. First of all, we had originally suggested that the shifting of some of the EcoPass savings into support maintenance operations, which is some of that movement that you saw in the fund financials and the projected. We had suggested a one-time shift, and those have been recommended as ongoing permanent shift to maintenance operations in KJID. There's also there was a general fund transfer decrease one-time recommended associated with the savings that we have with the credit card processing fees. And those have been recommended as ongoing, and which we're not concerned about just because we're not expecting them to be. It's not like they're gonna go back up. This new system. Specifically for.
Before I forget about it, because it's strictly related and it comes down later, but I'm gonna miss the connection to it here. If we raise the parking rates, as we talk about later in the packet, does that increase the fees because it's a percentage base, or is it a per transaction fee? So the amount we charge does not change the fee amount to the credit cards.
It's a really good question. It's probably the former, but we did need to have Elliot and the team.
Because that'd be interesting, because that does impact if we raise rates.
It's, yeah, our current agreement, at least for the garages and our permits, is that it's 3% or $4.99, whichever is higher, and $4.99 is still the higher. So it's, I don't think our increases are gonna change that, but we'll have to go back and take a look. The surface lots and the Trinity Garage are slightly different.
Are we talking Metropolis fee or credit
Metropolis.
card fees?
The credit card fees are not, oh yeah, we're talking about Metropolis fees. Right,
So,
different than credit card fees.
yes.
Yeah.
So in a way, we should table that to that, but in a way, it impacts this number we're talking about here too.
So our credit card fees went down significantly as a result of the shift to Metropolis. It doesn't mean that we don't still have credit card fees, and that's why there's been this shift.
And that's because they pay the fee, or, and then we pay the fee to.
We're playing,
They
we,
pass through,
exactly.
they pass through.
Yeah, well, we pay like,
The public pays.
99
Yeah.
Well, so if you
Yeah.
recall, we decided that KJ would absorb
Yeah.
a certain amount of the
Soften the-
99-cent fee for short-term visitors. There is also a fee associated with the permits for our monthly
What does CMO stand for?
city managers.
That's
Good question. I was like, Chief Marketing.
And that's so some enhancements that were discussed with you all. We had first had the ambassador program proposed as ongoing. Again, that's going to be a one-time request for the 2025 budget. We're going to be working with the Downtown Boulder Partnership on a formal advertising RFP process to make sure that we're getting the highest quality service for the money. Hopefully the next coming months, so that in the 2026 budget planning process, we'll be able to point to a competitive bid process in our ask to make the funding for that program ongoing. So we don't have to go to city council and ask for it every year. Also, we had proposed resources to continue the effort and pilot program, which originally were supported in part by federal ARPA dollars. we had suggested as an ongoing program. Right now, it's currently a one-time request for 2025. So we'll continue to ask for that in the future. Same thing with, the opposite thing with the, again, the Eagle Pass program. We're going to be doing the expansion to part-time and seasonal employees, ongoing. And then on the flip side, for our arts and culture, budget items, we had suggested some things as ongoing, but they're going to be one time in the budget, contingent on the update of the community cultural plan, which will lean on that work over the next, over the coming months to do our long-term budget asks in the 2026 budget process. The other things, let's see, I don't know that there's any adjustments for KJID in the capital highlights. Let's see.
One I wondered was security enhancements in the garage, because that's something that we have routinely here. Can you talk to us about that?
So this was included in the budget that we brought to you at the last meeting. So these are cameras, these are lighting improvements. One of the things that we hear from our customers is one of the reasons why they don't want to park in the garage, they'd rather park on street, is safety. It also includes cell phone signal enhancers, so folks who are in the basements of our buildings can have better ways to communicate if there is an emergency. It also benefits folks trying to sign up for Metropolis.
Does the police or ambassadors go circulate the garages?
Yes. And we have security, private security. And maybe staff with us.
Trying to market that. Yeah, a related question to, this probably doesn't fall under security, but I saw that we do this like major power washing when the garages are kind of, there's some capital enhancement work done. What's the cycle for that washing? Because I do think smells like urine is a big reason why I don't park in
That's
garages.
easier.
And I know that's not security, but it costs money, and I know that that's something that is a key.
Sure, so we do have Christine Edwards on
Yeah,
phone. She can speak to the maintenance schedule possibly if she's in the spot to speak. Is she able to talk? Or we can just allow her to talk. She's raised her hand.
there she is.
I'm gonna unmute you.
Great, we can hear you now.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
us? Yes,
Yeah.
can you hear us?
Aha, there it is. Eureka. Okay, sorry about that. So we are working currently on our planned maintenance schedule. We have been looking at so I have to say our maintenance team does go into the garages almost weekly to, especially like the St. Julian stairwells, to clean those things out, power wash all sorts of human grossness out of there. So there's that level of stuff that happens almost on the daily, if not weekly basis. We are doing more of a power wash. I don't know if you guys have gone down to hang out in the St. Julian garage yet this week. It's a treat, I must say, because we have done a bunch of painting and traffic coating and striping, and it's starting to look human again, which is exciting. So we are attempting to streamline our planned maintenance and have a cadence at which these power washing, striping, traffic coating processes happen. So I can't tell you what it is quite yet, but usually it's every 3 years is what we're anticipating for striping. I'm hoping that we can incorporate power washing. It's very expensive, but incorporate power washing of the garages annually is the goal. So more to come as we work that into the budget. We're trying to expand our budget for maintenance this year so that it can start to feel nicer. Yeah. Did that answer questions?
Yeah, that did. Thank
Clear
you.
as mud? Was that clear as mud for everyone?
There is an amazing traffic code.
Thank
It's
you.
so pretty. Oh God, the things I'm nerding out over these days, you guys. It's kind of sad and amazing.
Any more questions on the budget tweaks? All right, there's no vote required. If you did have concerns about these shifts, we could provide an opportunity to provide that feedback to council as they're going to their first and second reading. There are none. Proceed. All right. Now to the big packet agenda item. We had a lot of materials related to the civic use pad and the proposed development and the Cajun easement. So I provided a brief memo to kind of give you all an overview of where Cajun and DMC is involved in this. And it is really relatively limited. I might share my screen just because it's deep in the packet of things that I want you all to be considering. But there are three things that we are thinking about in wanting feedback from you all and where we're headed with the civic use pad. Trying to make sure I'm getting it right.
While you're looking at it, who's proposing this? Is this the city or the St. Julian?
It's the St. Julian. Here, I can't. My tabs. Gotta love. There we go. I'm trying to get to. There we go. Okay. Three things for DMC's consideration. First of all, mentioned and Don saw this, the proposed adjustments to the easement along the pedestrian corridor between Canyon and Walnut. So currently, Cajun is responsible for the upkeep of the lighting along that corridor. There are banner poles that used to be available for aesthetic improvements. There's a proposed adjustment to the size of that easement due to a cylindrical pillar that is now going to be smack dab in the middle of the old easement. So that's how the applicant has responded, because originally the easement was going to stay the same with the cylindrical pillar going in the middle of it, and the planning board's response was there needs to be some reasonable accommodation. And so the easement is getting a little bit bigger to make sure that the public continues to have access. Along with those comments, we certainly wanted to make sure that there's good wayfinding for the public as they're navigating this easement. We haven't seen the lighting proposal yet, but that will be coming. Up till now, Cajun has been responsible for maintaining the lighting. We have not been doing a great job of that because vehicles that go through there take those light poles out way too frequently. So we're really looking forward to having St. Julian formalize this space and have their own provided lighting, which reduces our long-term maintenance obligations with that space. Some other elements to consider is with the increased use on the civic pad that's being proposed. That means there's going to be more vertical movement through the garage that Cajun is responsible for in the stairs and the elevators. So when you're thinking about an owners association, there's a use assessment to understand if there are multiple owners, who's using what part of the property more, and that determines how much the split should be among maintenance costs for those stairways, for those elevators, and those other uses. So once we have assuming this project is approved and the thing is built, we are going to want to engage with the St. Julian to take a look at if there needs to be any adjustment in the use percentages for the shared common elements that will adjust maybe the long-term dues for maintenance of those elements.
So right, St. Julian gets allocated a certain number, but the city gets more.
Right.
But now that they've got a building above it, they might
So these are
get more
things,
because their building's right above.
exactly. We want to make sure that Cajun is not, being burdened unduly because of an increase in development on top of.
How full is that, like, what's the current capacity of the garage? Because won't it actually increase revenue for Cajun, like,
Sure,
likely?
yes.
Yeah.
There's plenty of capacity. It's probably,
Yeah.
it's our largest garage.
Yeah.
It's actually bigger than this garage, in number of spaces. And probably the lowest, or if not one of the lowest utilized
Yeah.
garages as a percentage of spaces available. So the garages were built based on modeling the build out of downtown, so it's natural that they're not all completely full because they're built to accommodate future uses such as a possible civic use development. So that's why the garage has so much capacity. And so we look forward to having that
That's
capacity.
positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting just because
Yeah.
underground, you don't know how big it is. And so generally you don't think this underground one's being big, and here you can be like, oh, that's a big building, there's gonna be a spot in there somewhere.
So yeah, certainly anticipating a higher utilization of the garage with this development, which will translate into.
So they have one of those signs that says number of spots.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, in advance of all this, we're looking at doing a stair reconstruction. So the stairs on the north side of the civic use pad are in particularly bad shape. We have stairs on the north side of the St. Julian as well, next to the elevator. So this is right off of Walnut. They're both in need of reconstruction. We want to take advantage of if and when this project gets approved. And when they're having a lot of loud construction occurring with that, we want to take advantage of that and get not just the stairs done, but a number of other capital projects. You'll recall we've been working to repair concrete between the first and second levels of the underground parking. That's partially why we wanted to make sure we got this traffic put in, is all the concrete work that we've already done. We want to try to protect that as much as we can. We also want to minimize any additional concrete deterioration that's been happening for 20 years. And while their construction is going on, we want to get in there and do the rest of the concrete repair so that we don't find ourselves in a situation. And with the building with more uses on top of the garage, loud work will be even more challenging to get done. So that's our current plan. And Christine is leading that with our team and our capital improvement contractor and our maintenance staff. So we're working to make sure we can. So those are the things that we've been taking into consideration, representing you all as the Downtown Management Commission, and how the CAGID responsibilities are shifting as a result of this proposal. And hopefully you saw those reflected adequately in these plans and the memo. If you are feeling like we've missed something, there is still time to provide comment. Want to just make sure that we daylight some of the CAGID considerations in this work before we move it.
On page 80, it talked about how this is for a 35-year term. What happens after 35 years to the civic space?
Let me get to page 80.
The civic pad is owned by St. Julian, and the agreements anticipated the pad would be leased to the civic uses for a 35-year term. The right to lease the civic pad was agreed to expire and so
This might, well.
I'm a different page. 80.
Different.
No,
It's not
it's a
page
different
80.
page 80.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
this may be
reading
when
the
I was
whole
coalescing
document.
documents together. So this is, oh, it's the third page went after the big pages.
Does it look
So
like,
many pages.
well, and so this is the thing, is it might be,
This is atypical for our packets. but
can I see it on your screen?
Yeah,
I'm gonna stop sharing.
that was-
you can see where it's in that paragraph above the red.
Um.
There's just one sentence that says this is leased for
Right.
35 years.
So that's if there had been a civic use identify. Other than, what we have identified as the right to give local nonprofits access to ballroom space. That is what that's associated with, is whatever the civic use is going to be. The St. Julian technically owns all of the airspace. But with the civic use requirement of the original development, the city had 20 years to identify what that civic use would be. Whether it was going to be a children's museum or another sort of nonprofit, anybody who come up with resources to develop that space would be able to have a 35-year lease for the space, whatever it is. Unfortunately, that never happened. No, there was no development that came in for that.
So is this the difference between when it technically expired to kind of what we get now?
Yes.
But so is it eternally going to be this kind of civic use space, or is like they could renege on this in a year and be like, it's now our
So there is,
Sundance Theater?
there's the terms of the contract, the 2019 contract determines the civic benefit. But if that boundary for parts of the mayor, so that is whatever the term of that contract is what how long we have that benefit.
So it's not necessarily that 35 years, what I'm thinking, that this 35 years is more, in a way, I still don't know the answer to how long do we get to have this as reduced rates for?
I'll have to look at the terms of that contract. Let's see. Let me get back.
And do we know, like, I feel like it sort of says that they got a discounted price, but do we know if it competes to market rate for other things, like? Just because it's discounted doesn't mean it's
Right, it's not
affordable for
free.
nonprofits, like I'm
Right.
just reading about, like, they can charge to use the warming kitchen, like. Is it one of
Seems
those?
pretty affordable.
Matt,
That's
do you
just
have
the
any
warming kitchen. How much
do you have
like
any-
rent
Small room.
paid?
additional context on how we're applying into because we have the same arrangement with the Limelight Hotel on the hill. So as far as the local nonprofits having access, affordable access to ballroom space.
So the question, Matt, was, how long does that exist for, that reduction in price for?
And not necessarily linked with that, so that is one question. The other question was, how have we determined what affordable is?
Yeah, because it's all inflated and everything. So
But
that,
it's the same
by-
way for the affordable commercial also, like.
Exactly.
And after the
like we're-
term, then do they just, St. Julian just owns it? Or,
St. Julian will own the building. They already do.
They've always owned this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's how long does the civic benefit exist?
Is it only required to do the discounted rates for a certain amount of time, because that's a city requirement for only a certain amount. But otherwise, they,
So
if they're-
we'll make note of these
Probably
questions,
better.
because for whatever reason, I'm not seeing that.
Maybe you have to follow up, I don't.
I had a second question with it more directly in line with what we're doing. That easement area with the pole and everything. It is relatively trafficked, and even in the pictures of people walking their bike. Is there a ramp? Like, I know the stairs, is there a ramp right there too for people to,
Yes.
okay? And
There's an ADA ramp. So not a cycle, it's not great for bikes.
right, yeah, it's 180-degree turn and not all poles, as I remember. Which on one hand though is good, because like that is so narrow, I'm concerned about bikes zooming through there, and it's helpful that there's not a really good way to get down the stairs and that ramp on bikes. So in a way that mitigates some of the concern that I had with, now it's so open that bikes can get through there fine, but like, I'm kind of glad that you can't, there's no bikers. Look, bikes from zooming through, we're lives.
Yeah.
Unless they're gonna do like awesome jumps.
Yeah, and that's there's no proposed change to those, to the current access, or north-south circulation. bikes and pets and others.
Do we know how optional the bridge is? In these plans?
That was, bridge is not
Bridge
being
is not
discussed. That was the original proposal.
Okay.
So that's just more the context of the evolution over time.
Okay,
Got it.
no
Current-
bridge.
The current proposal does not include.
Oh, between the two buildings?
Correct. Oh, no,
No,
sorry,
across
no,
Canyon.
across campus.
Okay.
Presuming
I
that
was
that's
like,
what you
"That's
meant.
brilliant."
That is what I meant.
The gondola.
No gospel.
I mean, even here it says you have to use their employees to serve alcohol at 2.5 times the minimum wage for tipped employees.
So in the agreement that I was referring to is attachment A. So whatever, that's what outlines all of the arrangement. There's no, it's- So I would presume that this agreement is in perpetuity attached to, as long as that use is there, this is an agreement for the parcel, so no termination would be my current understanding. That is not, we figured out that is not.
Could we confirm that? Because that's a big deal. That's a big assumption.
So did someone else, I think getting to your question, Erica, a little bit, like, did some other body in the city, like, assess whether the rates presented were considered affordable, and is there some framework? Or is it just like putting the word healthy on like a box of cereal?
So this was all arranged, so when the
Yeah.
clock was ticking, when when the city's 20 years was about up.
Okay.
This was arrangement with lawyers on both sides of an agreement that they could come to maintain some sense of civic use. Of
Okay,
the St. Julian's right to redevelop their property.
yeah, I like the concept. I'm just curious if the rate, what the basis of the rates were, or if that was part of the negotiation. In like the financial models and stuff.
Certainly, and so we'll
Okay.
get
Is there
more.
another example of, what, is there another civic use building that you could rent for events? I'm trying to think.
For
Like, do you
non-
own it or something?
For nonprofits, I'm trying to think.
The only one that might be similar is Mackey Auditorium. We have arrangement. People participated in the arrangement. But it's a very different arrangement. It's.
There's not a lot of event space in Boulder, right? It's definitely needing it. Need.
Assuming it's like meets the need.
Is there a line grove? On line 192, it talks about all the, TDM plan elements. And I didn't see anything about, the godforsaken lines
So
mentioned there whatsoever.
So we have not seen Lime as a separate private entity outside of private development. So I don't know that we've seen private developers saying, hey, we're gonna put in a Lime Grove. In the Lime Grove.
You mean they don't pick them?
Say it again. Some people don't, some people do. I think I'm not sure where the Lime Groves are on Walnut current. But
Because it talks about B-cycle. That's when. B-cycle is mentioned in here on, again, this is my 192. It's TDM toolkit element. It's table 1 of 900 Walnut proposed. It's got a yellow bar at the top. Okay. All right. This is where I was coalescing two documents. So B-cycle is mentioned in here. So that's where.
Well, and this is the TDM plan that was developed with the original proposal for the parcel,
This is dated August
You're not
19th,
assuming much
2024.
overlap between Lime scooter use and nonprofits.
so we can certainly inquire, CV does not manage the TDM plans for developments. It's all handled through transportation mobility. We can follow up with them and see if they're asking for scooter related elements in those plans. see it with their
I do think it's a different demographic. As though I think of it,
Well,
but maybe I'm not
Yeah, on the other
super
hand,
aware
it's
of the
the
demographic, but
hotel visitors. We're talking about how to get up and down, like,
the hotel visitors like do rent a lot of, like the B cycle is a very touristy thing, or I think the population, as I understand of Lime Skewers, is more the student population. And not like the St. Julian
it's just weird that it's
conference
not.
population.
Because that's, for downtown mobility, that is one of the things the task with is dealing with them. And it's not even mentioned as an option. Yeah. As you
I do.
stated earlier.
Well, I don't know that they're giving any TDM plan because it's a private and it's like, you know, including enterprise rent-a-car as part of your TDM proposal. Is not.
If they have like a contract, and the contract could end, but you're gonna design infrastructure and.
That is important to note that as part of the development, more bike parking is going to be located within KJ owned space in the underground garage. Not impacting any existing parking spaces, but I think they're also creating a secure bike parking area within KJ.
So do you need what's other feedback do you need from us?
It's really just a daylighting exercise, so wanting to make sure that you're all aware of the considerations. We can certainly take your questions back on some of these other components. It's not consequential to the development, but certainly important to make sure that it's clear on some of the benefits and anticipated outcomes. As long as you don't have any additional questions around Cajun specific impacts, and it all feels like your responsibilities have been adequately represented by staff in how we navigated the change in the easement, the wayfinding, how to make sure that that pedestrian way works as well, or if not better than what currently works.
Maybe from a pedestrian point of view, their garbage thing is like right there. It is unpleasant. 100%. We're talking about pee in the garages. Far worse walking by this. Yeah.
Never even walked that direction. I didn't even know you could, frankly.
I like these little shortcuts that go from there and then the one.
I always. Now
So,
that I know.
yeah, we can pass that comment on
Yeah.
and see if they can make sure that we don't have any leverage to, for smells, approaching on easements. But it doesn't mean that it has come up before, so, I'm not sure if they're proposing any ways to mitigate that. But we can certainly share that that's a conversation. All right. Moving ahead, our next item, Sam Bromberg is here to talk about a kickoff for our parking product analysis work that's been going on. Been doing a ton of work in the garages to make them work better for our existing customers. We also want to be thinking about how our changing technology for like Metropolis and for our conversion from the T2 permitting system to the Ames permitting system allows us to look at all of our products in a different way and identify different ways we can better serve existing or future customers. So Sam's been working with the team on working to identify what are some problems we want to solve and some strategies that we can employ to both optimize. These aren't the only objectives. We want to optimize the space that we have available for parking and access related needs, and also think about how do we make sure that we're maintaining revenue sources and things like that to take care of what we have. So with that, I'll hand it over to Sam for the presentation. There was another memo, of course, included in your packet this time.
Do you want to do the background as well?
Oh, yes.
Kind of already
I kind of already
got
said
into
it.
that,
But yes, so we're continuing to do our capital projects to get all of our garages up to a state of good repair. We will be tackling the 1100 Spruce Garage anticipated next year, and then moving into the St. Julian, as we discussed already. And again, we want to be anticipating the community's needs as well. As we're making all these capital improvements, how do we also make improvements to our operations, our product offerings to best reflect the needs of today as opposed to pre-COVID things.
So I'm Sam Brownberg. For those who are new, I'm the senior project manager with Community Vitality. I focus on the Access for All pillar. These are some of our downtown parking options. I wanted to put them on a little map so that you can see them all together. The largest portion of the gated assets are our 6 mixed-use parking garages and 1 surface lot, which is the spruce lot in purple. So we have 5 garages that offer both hourly and permit parking. Those are orange. We've got the permit only Trinity Garage, which is not on the map, but I've kind of pointed to it in the red, so you can see where it is. We've got 3 general fund owned permit only surface lots along 14th Street, also known as the East Bookend lots. Purple, they're kind of on the right side in purple there. And then, of course, the civic area municipal lots, which provide hourly parking as well as space for city board employees. So that's kind of the ecosystem in terms of where things are located. And then this is the ecosystem in terms of current products. This was also in the memo, so I won't go over it too much in depth, but essentially we've got monthly permits, and then we've got more kind of like hourly, daily type of rates. We've also done a little bit of market research to understand, the local landscape in which we're operating. To summarize, our permit pricing is pretty significantly below the market rate, which is like 200 to 230, and we're at 165. So we're pretty below that. For hourly pricing, we're not too far below. We definitely are, but not as significantly as the permit pricing. Also current state wayfinding, we do have some of these static signs throughout the downtown area, which are meant to guide parkers to the different options that we have. We also have the brand new digital displays that were installed last year. Some of you will recall those, and they show like how many spaces are available, and then they've got other variable messaging there. Since these signs were installed, which was a while ago, you can tell by the condition of some of them. There was one on the hill that was like completely washed out by the sun. They haven't been looked at in a while, so traffic patterns may have changed since they were installed. Utilization trends, this was my interactive slide. Some of this was in the memo, so if you did your homework, you'll be able to answer these questions really easily. But my first question is multiple choice, and it's: when do you think the downtown garages and lots are most utilized? A is weekdays, B is weekends, and C is wildcard.
Post-COVID, we could.
Yeah, that was the ship.
Awesome. Yes. Which garages do you think are the least utilized?
Safety land, talk about that. The RTD one.
Yeah, RTD for sure is like the #1 least utilized.
Do you ever think have you ever done data to figure out why? Like, I'm curious if people assume RTD's only for if you're taking the bus, and if the St. Julian one is only if you're staying at the hotel. Like, I just wonder if people.
Yeah,
I think it might be the lots themselves too.
Or something lots like.
Location. My favorite lot is the spruce lot. It's the nicest lot.
a lot of people
By
would agree
far.
with you. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really great question, and it would be an interesting assumption to test. I think that would be a really hard question to answer, because how do you understand why people aren't using things? You'd have to ask them, and I think there's definitely a lack of understanding amongst the public of like where our garages are and like what they can use and can't use. So that's something that I'll talk about. And
I like to talk more about that, because like I don't use a person. I think I avoid lots in general, but I think a lot of the public does because we have great on-street parking. Super easy and convenient. But then if I'm gonna use a lot, I'm gonna go to the lots that I like and avoid lots that I don't like because they're dark, they're smelly, they're inconvenient. But I was just thinking like, how do we turn, and I think this is a separate conversation, but how do we turn that lot into a desirable lot?
Yeah.
I think connects back to like, well, why would you even use that lot? Maybe it's like the farmer's market, but then you like don't realize you should park there.
Yeah.
And so like that, there's not like an obvious destination from that lot, because it's still kind of far away from, it's like inconvenient to park there.
Yeah,
If you're going to Pearl.
we almost certainly do get farmers market utilization of
Yeah.
that lot because you'll see in some of my next slides.
Yeah.
Like the weekends are way more utilized.
Which is
for
that lot,
RTD.
which is farmers market.
The RTD garage is,
I
I
mean,
think,
it's,
what,
it's not exactly the farmer's market lot, but like,
It's cheaper than Boulder High.
it's the closest
Cause
lot,
it's
yeah.
free.
yeah, it's like right over there.
So
Right.
if you need a sign at the Boulder High lot, like, or park at the city lot, go over there.
Well, then, you know, if we
Great.
updated wayfinding,
Yeah.
that's something that we could look at is like, you know, where is traffic coming from? Where is it going to? And then putting signs along that route that to make sure that we're guiding people to,
Yeah.
the resources that we have.
One of our, sorry to chime in, our customer service supervisor was a lot attendant for a long time, and she said that a lot of folks will jump into the square around downtown at Spruce and hit the lot first, because that's the first one you come to. Then they'll go over to the Spruce parking garage. Then the next one that you run into is Randolph. And if you keep turning left, you ignore the RTD garage, likely because people don't know that it's not a park and ride. And then you hit 1500 Pearl. And the St. Julian is just outside of that. So yeah, as we look at traffic patterns, it's really interesting to see the way human brains work.
And then my last one, Price is Right, if anyone can guess the length of the longest wait list for our east bookend lots. This was in the memo, but if you want to throw out a number and then I'll tell you the answer.
Year and a half.
2 years.
Oh, no, number of people waiting to
Oh.
get a permit,
Oh.
400.
not quite. It's 60. That each of those lots has like over 60
Which
people.
ones are those?
Those were, let me go back to the slide. These, can you see my
Like the purple.
mouse?
Oh, the
It's the
circle
first
box?
house, the purple.
Yeah, can I leave
Uh,
that one?
Or is it the?
So yeah, behind
These guys,
the tea house.
Oh, those,
Mm.
yeah,
yeah,
these are always so
these
cool.
ones. So these are permit only right now.
Okay.
We used to have a wait list. We waited years and we finally got in and then COVID hit. And we're like, what? Don't get the spots. Yeah, it's like 70 people or 65 people.
We've had over 60 people for like many years, like there's been no
Is
budget,
that all the lots? Do you have a waiting list?
just those three. So, and interestingly, the Trinity Garage, which is also permit only, which was my little red arrow.
Mhm.
We only have sold 19 permits. We have 52 that we can sell.
What's
So,
up there?
But that's pretty new, right? That
It's-
it became a city situation. It's a church, right?
yeah, it's underneath it, but
Affordable housing, senior affordable housing, yeah, and church facility.
But then I think the ones on the south side of Canyon that we're talking about, the purple ones are, yeah, there's all these businesses and stuff down there. that have
Right.
No parking.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Fun
Right.
fact, just as of today, we may have somebody who's going to scoop up all of the Trinity permits, so that's exciting.
Okay, good to know. This was just a little bit of data to help you understand the utilization of the garages. The top one is weekdays and the bottom one is weekends. This is 1100 Spruce, which is one of our more utilized garages, the most utilized garage, and then 1400 Walnut is the RTD garage. By comparison, you can see weekdays, it's like kind of flatlined. Weekends, we've got a spike, and that's because of that farmer's market utilization most likely. So to summarize, some of the challenges that I've described so far, supply and demand is definitely a challenge that we have with the mismatch in parking availability and the demand for that. travel patterns have changed. When parking is most in demand in the garages, it's free. And it's not consistent across all of our assets and over time, you know, with some lots having super long wait lists and some being undersold. The other thing that we've had requests for is for residential permits for aged residents, which is not something that we've entertained in the past, but we could. Another challenge is public perception. We've talked a lot about this one. There's a perception that parking in Boulder is challenging.
Thanks that.
Like everybody.
Everybody,
So
a lot of
I don't
folks.
understand that.
'Cause
And I-
they say they want like, they wanna pull right into the place they wanna go and
I
have a
think we
spot
should-
that's like waiting for them.
Yeah, I don't know, I also just don't think next door is, it's just like where people go to complain. So
Right.
it's just,
They don't
it's
even
not,
know
I
that.
don't know if that's representative of the general population.
Well, and we also
It's
did
like-
that gateless survey earlier.
It's representative
if
of
you
people that
remember.
complain about us.
Yeah.
That's
There's
why you're
also,
there.
there's also the perception that the garages are unsafe. So that's another public perception.
I don't think that's it.
I think, yeah, that, like, has there been cars broken into? In the garage? We had that spot, the product that set up. Really? Really?
Do you park at Randolph? I'm like a Randolph. guy. And I go to the basement.
Yeah.
Give a red Honda Civic.
Whatever.
Those get really broken into.
A bunch of times, so the misses it for 10 years. Or broke into a few times, mostly in the Randolph parking garage.
I would say that we have had some. Some instances, there's mostly in the Randolph. But no. No significant trends that we haven't.
I can second that. It would end up on my plate of nightmares. And I don't spend a whole lot of time dealing with break-ins.
Right, and that's why we consider it to be like a public perception
Perception,
issue
not-
as opposed to like an actual safety issue.
There's a lot of parking.
There's
in
tons of
Boulder.
parking, you just might have to pay
Or not.
$1.75,
Or
which we
could
know you can
just-
afford.
You could just go to the
You get the
garage and
first
not
step.
pay. I think that's the thing that I'm curious about, like. The public, maybe they're just going on this route, they're just like wandering in their cars, they don't see spots, they don't know where to go, like. Yeah, there's a lot of parking in Boulder, people just don't park there. Weird, yeah.
Or if you park on the street, it could be an easy spot, but like if you forgot to put like add money to your meter, you're gonna get a ticket, and then I think people have a perception of like being angry at. That's why I'm always like, go in the lot, you can stay as long as you want. You'll never get a ticket, right?
Good marketing.
And then our third sort of challenge area is our climate initiative. So this is, you know, a city policy, right? How can we contribute to climate initiatives by supporting multimodal travel both to and in the district? So I put this as sort of a challenge area is, you know, how can we contribute to that goal? We've come up with some objectives for this project to try and accomplish the highest and best use of the Cajun assets. And we are looking for feedback on these, but we'll hold off on the feedback until the end and we can go back to the slide. These are in the memo as well, but they are support all modes of transportation to downtown. Manage parking demand across the district. Maintain safe, accessible, and activated district assets. Create a consistent parking experience across Boulder. Support the Park Once philosophy and support the downtown economy. So these are our objectives, very high level, you know, what could we accomplish?
Park once, is that?
Park once and then walk, you know, so that you're not, so if someone comes downtown and they choose to drive, we want to encourage them to like park once in a garage and then take another form of travel within downtown. So they're not like driving to their next destination downtown. They're maybe taking a B-cycle, taking a Lime scooter, or walking, taking the hop. That's the park once. So if you do need to drive, just park once. And then use another mode.
Is that common? I've always, yeah, just, I'm focus group of one, but like. Who the hell parks on one side of Pearl Street and drives through the other? Does that happen?
I do it all the time. Because I'm not gonna like take my children on the joint scooter ride, but.
I've never,
Like, if
even
you
with
have
my
an
kids, like, you
errand.
just like, we're gonna walk 3 blocks.
Well,
Go.
like if you have an errand and you're like picking stuff up and it's heavy and I don't know, I mean,
Well, there we are, focus group of 2. I've never done it. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
you have little kids, I guess.
Well, I did,
They can barely walk all the way down Pearl. I don't think that many people do that. Though. Like if you're disabled or if you have kids that have to walk. You can't get-
But I guess, what have you found? Is it part, moving the car around a lot, something that happens?
We had the Chivo train that could take us.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that it happens and would like for it to happen less.
It's just one of the ways that we could contribute to.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we've developed a couple of options to the end of achieving those objectives that we've just outlined. And those include some short, medium, and long-term options for us to explore. And these options, we're also hoping to solicit some feedback from you all on as well to understand kind of what your preferences are. So to support all modes of transportation downtown, something that we could explore would be additional multimodal benefits for our Cajun employees. That's more of an employee focus. To manage parking demand across the district, we could update our wayfinding signage, which you saw was a little bit outdated. We could think about some creative marketing approaches that we could implement. That could include a lot of different approaches to try and get a little bit more education into the community about where the resources are. In terms of parking, and then we could also consider pricing adjustments to help manage supply and demand and redistribute that across our assets. To maintain safe, accessible, and activated district assets, we already plan to implement some safety improvements in the garages. So that will certainly help. And then also, to identify customer needs that aren't currently being met by our assets, something like residential parking permits, which might activate the garages at a different time of day than they're being activated now. People in there at different times might help with that perception of safety. Create a consistent parking experience across Boulder. Currently, parking is paid on street Monday through Saturday, but free in the garages on Saturdays and Sundays. Could we figure out a way to have a more consistent experience no matter where you're parking in Boulder? Support the Park Once philosophy. So we know people still need to drive. So let's encourage them if they do need to drive to just park once. We just talked about that one. Support the downtown economy. And this is, how could we consider ways to support small businesses? Which could include promoting, our affordable commercial program to property owners and small businesses and other types of initiatives. In terms of our staff recommendations, this is our short-term option. Most of the other options that we started to talk about could be incorporated into the 2025 to 2027 work plans, depending on how DMC is feeling about some of them. But this is an option that we can implement sooner because we are slightly under market rate for all of our current pricing. So our recommendation is to explore some increases in the downtown garages and the surface lots, but not necessarily the community garage because that's currently undersold. So these are some gradual increases in pricing over the next few years to try and get a little closer to that market rate. And address some of the supply and demand issues. Something of note is that parking pricing in the US is a little fairly inelastic, which means if prices rise, we're probably not going to see a decrease in demand just because of, there's not a lot of other places for people to go. So we don't anticipate that these pricing changes will create a huge drop in demand or really any significant change in demand for them.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
With my philosophy is government should compete with private.
Mhm.
And that if we're this underpriced and it's inelastic, there's like all these things that say get higher faster. Why, I would propose getting the market rate, just boom, there's less confusion because the rates are changing, and that causes confusion for people. It's like the rates changing year after year. Is there an issue with just going from 165 to 180, just like that?
So we do have a number of very large customers who are major property owners in the downtown, so some of our key constituents that will pay our salary. So what, you know, somebody who might own a few parking permits, a larger increase doesn't affect their overall bottom line of the annual budgeting process as much as somebody who owns hundreds. Do we know how many? That's our
90 is probably, well, actually, I don't, that was, sorry, that,
So we do have some property management companies, property owners that own a significant number. So what might seem small,
But with
translates
60
into-
people on the waiting list,
that's the surface lots.
We don't have. that right now, so.
And you will see that, you know, what we recommended for the surface lots is a higher. So underneath the price, I put like the percentage increase year over year so that you could see. Historically, we've only increased pricing every other year, so my suggestion was, you know, let's increase prices over 3 years, every year. And it's a slightly higher increase for the surface lots than it is for, you know, the downtown.
My philosophy is a little bit different, of like, the business owners are being pushed, and now, like, I talked about all the Excel energy stuff, it's probably gonna be really challenging for businesses. How do we get them to actually get their employees to drive to park in the lots? That will be some sort of like low price because of volume sort of arrangement, and then how do we increase pricing for the general public? Who is actually, I think, more price inelastic than we think.
Yeah.
They just want convenience, they want cleanliness, they want safety. I don't think people in Boulder are as price sensitive about parking, because they'll park in the, you know, as convenient as possible and pay a lot higher amount. They're just not thinking about those dollars and cents as much. Like,
Right.
maybe we don't have weekends free all the time, or maybe we like start making up the lost revenue elsewhere, but I just, not that I'm a business owner, but I do feel like that's gonna affect their bottom line and make downtown businesses less viable, which we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
If they're the main permit holders, which it sounds like they are.
It depends. So sometimes, a lot of times actually, parking permits are included in the lease. So,
Yeah.
it's not as direct, but still with the triple net.
Yeah.
Structure in our downtown, the increased expenses get translated onto the tenants one way or another. And so just trying to be thoughtful and careful with that.
Yeah, we have a lot of low margin businesses. In the downtown, like where, I think you think about that more.
And so that's been our strategy, is how do we balance the need to make sure that we're not undercutting the market. Because that's not good territory to be in. But we also don't want to create a unplanned significant financial burden for any of our customers that currently have a high number of.
We could also get rid of the $3. I mean, that was also an experiment. I know I like proposed it back in the day, but it just also figuring out where we make up for it.
Right,
Yeah,
and that's certainly part of the options we want to explore, and the feedback that we're looking for is like, where is the appetite for exploring some of those different potential pricing changes?
Yeah, I also would love to bring up that when I've gone to meetings with DDP, a lot of business owners are concerned that because there's no free parking, that's why people aren't coming to their businesses. So there is an impact on businesses, or at least perception, that community members aren't going downtown because parking is expensive. But again, perception versus reality. We have some exploration to do.
Didn't you look into the Saturday thing? Isn't that been discussed, like charging again on Saturdays?
That's an option that we can consider, and if that's a direction that the DMC would like us to explore, we can do that between now and November and come back in November and present on, what would that look like? What does that mean? What revenue does that generate? And then how can we reinvest that in some of the other options that we're
I mean,
looking
even
at?
I feel like if you took, just based on pedestrian count, like what is the slowest day of the week, like say a Tuesday or Wednesday? Maybe if that was a free day and kind of shifting like, so that locals maybe feel more like that's the day that I am available to go, whereas I feel like weekends and Mondays are primarily tourists. And they're gonna pay no matter what, because they're just prepared to pay, but I feel like,
Right. Or, something else we could consider is if we're going to charge on Saturdays, like, could we maybe lower the cost of the first hour of parking a little bit more to bring it more in line with the on-street rate for that more consistent experience for us?
Yeah.
Or like, what else could we do? Could we create some creative marketing approaches that maybe validate parking for specific user groups on specific days? To encourage them to come downtown on those lower utilized days, like Mondays are very underutilized.
I have wondered about validation and, with the two of you on this. Would that be something, well, maybe I should ask you more, but.
Yeah.
How would validation work so that would drive people to stores or restaurants more because you validate? How would that work? Would that just be free then because it's validated, or would the restaurant or the?
yeah, we have to pay. And
Yeah.
I mean, just for the record, I park in the neighborhood. In 17 years, I've never paid to park downtown. I'm not gonna do that. And the amount of money I've saved is like outrageous, and I don't mind the walk and I don't mind the hunt. And then Saturdays and Sundays I park for free, but even I'm like, I'd give it up. Cause I can't, I'm one person, right? I can imagine the revenue that I see of like tourists that are parking for free, who probably don't even know it's free. And probably pull out and are like, oh, especially now with Metropolis, I think it's really easy to forget whether or not you got a bill. So, and sometimes the sign says parking is free, sometimes it doesn't work, but
So I don't want us to get too far into the tinkering.
Right, this is like a whole
All
other
very
study session.
interconnected, because the decisions that we make about parking for short-term visitors on weekdays has an impact for businesses who are paying for permits for employees from Monday through Friday. And so just, there's a kind of a domino effect. So we want to be really careful about what adjustments we can do right now as we contemplate maybe some bigger picture initiatives that could help us solve some of these problems associated with getting locals to come downtown more often. How do we get weekday workers to come to the office more often? It is all certainly
You're not
interconnected.
gonna come downtown to park in the garage, we're not gonna change habits with garage marketing. We're just gonna make sure people park there.
Well,
If on-street parking is significantly more expensive than garage parking or.
Well, I don't think they're gonna go
Yeah.
downtown on a Monday. I mean, at least,
no, but we might be able to
Uh,
change perception about
Mondays.
accessing Boulder, and I think that's
Yeah.
where the great change is like when people don't no longer have that perception that it's so challenging to get there, maybe they're more likely to come here.
other question is about the Metropolis, shadow of. My older father and my babysitter both had a very bad incident where they got fees and they tried to write back, and I wonder also if there's a shadow of the people who are like. I talked to customer service, I didn't know about it, they got fees, I'm just never doing it again, and there are a lot of people, the next door, we see that, they've one bad experience, they never return. And I was kind of thinking about how much of I have one bad experience, the garage smells like urine. It's really dark, I feel scared, it's at night, or whatever it is, this perception issue, and. Yeah, how much of this is just, it's more. Not about pricing, just about perception and getting people there and getting people to go back who had one bad experience, I'd have to know it's gonna be different.
Well, in a way, we solve the problem. If it always has a cost, then the people who complain that they get charged, not registering for 3 days. There's no more 3 days, then you always gotta pay.
Well, I do think we should have refunded all those people those fees who like mistakenly left, and I think, I didn't hear that happen, and I don't have an escalated that, it was just like a long time ago. But there are still very angry people about just one incident, and I'm like, just give it up, it's $20, but you know, people.
Next door.
Well, we have a policy
Yeah.
where if it's your first time violation and you contest it, as long as you register for the system, they'll waive the fee.
Has that always been the case?
That's been the case since we launched.
Yeah,
Um,
and people just are confused, general confusion. Yeah.
2024, everything's. It's like,
Yeah, so I'm more interested in the marketing campaigns more than the pricing, but I also see the pricing could generate revenue to do more marketing and to reinvest in making the garages better, because they're expensive to maintain and to keep nice. So if we need to fund that through an increase, then I'm supportive of looking into that.
Tina, have you anything to say about paying on weekends and retailers and paying to park on the weekends versus not? Because yeah, it's you're gonna come anyways to a degree. You know, I don't know that like $1.25 is gonna.
I have a lot to say on this topic, so I will try to reserve my speech. But I will say in general, I think that Boulder has one of the most user-friendly parking experiences that I've encountered. Not just in the state, but in other states as well. I think it would be a really big mistake to get rid of free parking on the weekends, because that, even if people don't use it, it sends the message that we are a community that wants people to come here. So I would recommend, I know it's not my purview to say this, but keeping the free weekends is really critical. And I think that, I can't remember who said it, but the community is probably less price sensitive and more convenience focused. That's absolutely true.
I agree with that. I think we gotta make it easy for people to want to go down to town, especially on the weekends. I don't know, I mean, again, focus group of one, but when I tend to park, like, I have hacks of places that I know where to park and stuff, but you know what I mean, like, you gotta make it really easy, and I think it seems like the perception is the reality, so if there's already a negative perception, then for you to sort of take away one of the perks that you have, I think it's gonna only create more angst and, you know, upset, especially if you're saying that, you know, people are going downtown, but, you know, I don't know, they're not always going, I mean, you just gotta make it easy for people who want to be downtown.
So maybe the $3 after 3, did you know that
Yeah.
that was a thing?
I didn't know that was there.
right, and I think
Yeah.
what we're looking for today is not necessarily like, what do we wanna do? Cause
Yeah.
we haven't developed those recommendations, it's more just like, what is the appetite for us to explore, and pricing changes could be one of those things. This is our short-term option, so I don't wanna get too far past this, but I will quickly. Yeah, let me go to next steps, and then I've got my questions for the DMC slide, so I've laid it all out for you guys, so, in terms of next steps, kind of depending on some of the feedback that I hear, we'll be putting together more of a formal project schedule, which we'll bring back to you in November, so you can see, you know, based on the things that are interesting, how can we start working on them, over time? And then if there is approval for the pricing changes that were proposed by staff with permits, we can implement them as soon as the 2025 calendar year, so.
I did have one question by the last, sorry, going back to that with that pricing we just had. Do those-
The market rates, you mean,
The
or the market research, or our,
the comps?
comps,
yeah, let me go back to that.
do they have wait lists?
I don't know.
I guess. That'd be interesting just to see it as a comparison as we look at rates for that. It's just like, you give them a buzz and just like, the other wait lists too.
There used to always be a wait list. And then people just aren't, I mean, correlating with upstairs office space being vacant.
Yeah, it's just one more data point, just as we're like looking at rate changes. Concept wait list.
Yeah, I just refer to your the permits seem like an easy way to increase pricing, but I also just feel like the downstream implications on business owners. If that's not a legitimate concern, if you all don't feel like it is, and you hear most of that feedback, then I would defer to you, but I also think the public is less price sensitive than we think. Maybe not free, but about raising rates.
I think most permit holders expect that prices are gonna go up some year over year. That's sort of an expectation for most people, so I'm not anticipating, the changes that we've suggested are pretty mild. All things considered, like, we're not suggesting any crazy price jumps.
So you think it'll be accepted and fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
When business owners buy, like in bulk, are there signups and stuff?
No,
Bulk rates.
no bulk rates.
Okay.
So these are the questions that we have for DMC. I hope we've addressed all of your questions about the existing conditions, but if we haven't, I can address them. We'd like feedback on our identified objectives for the caged assets. I can go back to that slide if that's helpful. And to understand if there's any that you aren't seeing that you'd like us to add in terms of sort of the high level project objectives. And then, of course, feedback on any of the recommended mechanisms that I've talked about to meet those objectives.
Also want to do a time check. We're at 6 o'clock. So I feel like we've gotten a lot of great feedback already that we can certainly incorporate into our next steps. If there's anything else you want to share based on the memo, happy to entertain.
I'll just say the Park One's mentality, I think our landmarking of our assets is a good step in that. You know, just had a bunch of family in town and being able to say, oh, it's right by this thing, or like this little alleyway mural going from the Pearl and 15 garage. Like, if we continue landmarking more, I think that makes it easier for people to just kind of know where they are in relation to everything that we're trying to get them to walk to, bike to, things like that.
Don't know what we were discussing.
Also, good. Can we put a bigger sign on RTD? So people know that it's not RTD.
I heard yeah, you have it as the farmer's market garage. It's like
Right.
your old weird posts. So I don't know. Yeah, I think we could do more, but it costs money, so we have to fund it. Okay.
All right, great. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Sorry, everyone.
So the rest of these, we can either, we can do a quick, update. And also maybe, if there's anything that we can easily move to the next agenda as well, just. Matt, I'll pass on to you for a quick update on where we're at with council on the commercial areas.
Great, I'll try and do this in under 3 minutes. So we brought you a couple times the updates on the improvement district analysis. And just a reminder, that is the vision and the mechanisms by which we can achieve that vision for general improvement districts. We have gone through a couple of changes in scope, and that's been further informed by the conversation with council at their meeting last week. And so I wanted to give you an update that essentially we've broken apart what we've been talking about with the district analysis into near term and long. And so we're going to take a look at immediately what changes can be made in efficiency and governance for general improvement districts, including CAGID, right now, in order to achieve immediate goals that are already established. And we're really keeping an eye on a deadline of next May to analyze and come up with recommendations on that. Then as far as the long-term visioning goes, that was part of the scope originally, that we are now calling the Boulder Commercial Areas Blueprint. taking a look at it as more of a strategic document that springs out of the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan update, which will be kicking off here, I think, next month. So the idea is to take full advantage of the comp plan update and all of the questions we're going to be asking about commercial areas, the connections, the quality of life, the governance, the efficiency. We're taking a look at all of that with the comp plan on a very large scale. Then from that, do the specific analysis engagement that we need to understand what our priorities and vision are going to be for downtown over the long term, and then what type of governance tools, improvement district tools we're going to need to achieve that. So there's a lot of detail in that. We'll have a lot of conversations coming up. We still have you on the hook to help us out with this. Thank you very much. And we'll be providing updates pretty much at every meeting. I'm pretty certain as these things roll along. But I'll answer any questions you have. But just to summarize, the short term is coming up next. The district analysis is going to look at a near term for what to do. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or if you think of anything, reach out and I'll make sure to set aside time to sit down and walk through anything coming up. Okay. Right. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Next, we have two quick updates from Regan.
Thanks, Chris. So I do have a PowerPoint prepared for affordable commercial, but I promise I can fly through it. So let me share my screen. And then the Commutify update will be very brief as well. Oops. Okay, can you all see that?
Yep.
Great. I'm just going to jump right in. So I'll just emphasize the purpose of this work. Well, first of all, on September 9th, so last week, we launched an affordable commercial grant pilot program. And the purpose is to help address a gap in the market for more affordable commercial space and increase opportunities for small local businesses to thrive in our commercial areas. So to just kind of go over the basics here, grants are available for commercial property owners to renovate, expand, improve existing vacant commercial space. And the requirement is that they then lease that repurposed space to multiple tenants at a below market rate. Total funds available for this grant program is about $850,000, which includes both American Rescue Plan Act funds as well as CAGED funding. So there is an emphasis on downtown locations, given that we are using CAGED funds for this initiative as well. And the grants will be dispersed on a reimbursement basis, meaning we will reimburse the expenses already incurred as opposed to providing all the funding upfront. And awards, we will award proposals up to $300,000, and awards above the maximum amount may be considered if a proposal exceptionally aligns with or exceeds our established criteria. And we will accept proposals for smaller amounts as well. So again, the application was released on September 9th. The deadline is October 7th. I will be convening a review panel to score the applications, but in mid-October from the 8th to the 22nd, with decisions being announced at the end of October, and we will enter into agreements with the grantees through the month of November. And just want to emphasize that the American Rescue Plan Act funds do need to be encumbered by the end of this year and need to be spent by December 2026. Eligibility is, I can't see if anyone wants to interrupt me, go ahead. I just can't see.
The panel selection later in your presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. So eligibility requirements, I'll just quickly go through each of these. Eligible projects include, regarding the scope, include both capital expenditures and initiatives designed to provide rent subsidies to tenants. And the projects must be structured to ensure long-term affordability to multiple tenants. The project must be within the city limits of Boulder, must be a property owner, commercial property managers, or business ventures with legal authority to execute a commercial lease. The projects must have multiple tenants, so think of shared retail or office facilities, incubator spaces, similar models like that are eligible for the program. And then capital projects, any projects that would enhance the space for a tenant. I'm not going to go into this with too much detail, but the applications will be evaluated based on a local small business focus, impact and feasibility, which includes affordability. Is there a clear implementation plan? And then longevity. So just looking at long-term affordability, what measures are will be taken to ensure sustained program impact. We will require that any of the grantees submit reporting, so quarterly reports, final report, and an annual affordability compliance report, which details lease rates and tenant profiles for the prior year. I have the city webpage and application link here on the screen. Happy to answer any questions, but I do just want to use this as an opportunity to extend an invite to one DMC commissioner to participate on the review panel. I did reach out ahead of time to Commissioner Trees about this, but just want to open up the invitation during this meeting. The DMC commissioner would be a non-voting member, but would provide general oversight, expertise, and advice on behalf of the DMC. So would love to extend that opportunity to you all. I don't know if anyone has particular interest in that, but.
You know, have interest in you've already.
No, I would love for you to be on it. I'd like to, I think the more we spread it out, the more also we're aware and.
I would do it. I'm really curious about this.
And just in terms of a time commitment, it'll likely be about 4 to 5 hours in October. So 2 meetings, likely no more than an hour, 1 meeting to go over the review and scoring process, and then another meeting to deliberate on our scores, but we'll be scoring individually, which I imagine will take 2 hours or so, depending on how many applications we receive.
Has there been? You said this launched on the 9th, I believe.
September 9th, yeah.
And what's the feedback been so far, application?
So far, there has been a lot of interest. The application itself isn't, it'll take some time to fill out, so we have yet to receive applications, but I know of several folks that are planning to apply. So there is a lot of interest, and I've had a lot of conversations with various property owners about the program.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. How many unique property owners are there in Cajun? Like, I know there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of big ones, but then there's a lot of small ones too. Okay.
Exactly.
And are you seeing more interest from the big ones and small ones, or is that something we'll report on after?
I'm seeing, just based on conversations, a bit of a mix, but happy to report back on that after the application
Good to hear.
closes. Mhm.
That's good to hear. It's really exciting because there's been so many ideas about how to repurpose the space, and this is a really cool pilot. So glad that we're involved.
Yeah.
So I would like to do that.
Yes, so we have 2 volunteers.
Say October.
What's that?
When you say October.
Okay, so both Erica and Justin have raised their hand, Regan. I mean, there's no, 2 commissioners are allowed to participate in things, so we might be able to accommodate both of you, so we'll follow up. If that's the case.
It sounds great. Yeah, if you can send information about what that looks like and when that would be exactly, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll follow up with you both this week.
All right.
All right. Last agenda item here, so just want to give a brief update on the Boulder Clean Commute Program. As a reminder, this is the TDM program that we launched earlier this year in Caged and Boulder Junction, which encourages companies to fund and participate in more sustainable commuting practices through a financial incentives matching program directed at their employees. So the city will match employer-provided funds for their employees who take sustainable trips to and from work. And with that, one of the incentives for the employers, as a reminder, is that they can apply for the state tax credit that provides a 50% tax credit towards dollars spent on sustainable transportation initiatives for their employees. You should have a quarterly report from Commutify in the meeting packet. It is from Q2, so it's a little bit outdated. We have seen more engagement since then. There are approximately 22 employers participating in the program, with roughly, I think 17 of them are based in Caged. 1,200 sustainable trips have been logged by 40 employer users. So those are just some updated statistics for you all. I think even though we are seeing some level of engagement, we would love to see more. And so this is a pilot. We're evaluating our opportunities, and looking ahead, we really want to boost our outreach efforts the remainder of this year, just to raise more awareness of this program, talk to employers who might be aware of it but haven't signed up, just to better understand any barriers as to why they're maybe not signing up. But we do want to see this program continue. So in our recommended budget for 2025, we have allocated additional funding for this program. But official city council approval on that budget won't take place till October 17th. So more to come, but it is in our recommended budget, and just kind of looking to boost our outreach efforts.
One question, on the page that all the blue charts or tables, I saw remote listed there. Is that one of the reimbursed ways is by, I was intrigued with remote being on there versus car and carpool and driving. So are we paying people to stay home?
We're not paying people to stay home. Trying to see what you're looking at, Commissioner. What page is it on?
Well, that's on my page.
Okay, this is big.
4 of 175 for me. Page 4 and also page 1.
Yeah, it's got the 4 at the bottom.
Yeah.
So we're not paying folks to work remote because they're not commuting, of course. Commute mode rate, weekly frequency of each route.
That's good. That was my big picture question.
Okay.
So what does
is
it
that then?
represent? Yeah.
That's a large number.
I think that's just reporting, right?
Is that
I
just
think
re-
it's just the date. It might be I'll have to dive a little deeper into this, but it might just be those who are taking advantage of the program, which days they're working remotely. I may have to dive deeper, and I'm happy to get back to you on that, but I do want to clarify we're not paying folks who are not commuting to work.
So you said that, so this is a pilot, but my sense is that you don't think it's considered successful yet because of the low engagement. So does that mean that contractually there's, like, you'll make a decision that you maybe, even if you allocate funds towards this project, that you might not continue it? Or is there an assessment that's gonna happen of, like, also, like, I have a company, we do pilots. We are on the hook for making those pilots successful, or we have an opt-out in contracts. And I would say I'm excited about this program, but it just doesn't seem like the reach is successful. And I'm wondering if there's more leverage on Commutify versus on the city to, like, help make it more successful. 'Cause
Yeah,
technology-
no, that's a great
It's managed.
question.
Just technology, like, you know, it's
Well,
not
if
that
we're
easy
having
to-
those conversations with them, we are gonna lean on them a little bit more heavily to help with the outreach efforts. I wouldn't say it's not a success. We, this just launched in April, so I think it really does boil down to just kind of shifting our outreach efforts, and there's a lot more analysis to be done. We plan on conducting a survey towards the end of the year, and just doing more analysis to better understand, is this something that we would want to continue into the future?
Now, I also think that like changing behavior is really difficult. And this is a behavior change product, like my company's behavior change product. And like getting people to change how they commute is a really challenging thing, and leaning into like making that really easy. So I guess I'm not saying I don't think it's successful, but I also think that it's a hard thing to do. And it's gonna take a lot of effort to change people's behavior.
Yeah, I guess maybe my big picture question based on what you're saying is it actually changing anything? Are we just paying people to do what they're already doing?
Yeah, 'cause
Or are we-
that's fine.
Has there been behavior change?
I mean, just based
Yeah, how
on,
do they prove it?
maybe we talk about this separately, Reagan, but like. It might just be my bent, is like having a behavior change company that we founded. That actually does not use financial incentives purposely because they're not effective for a lot of behavior change. People would have already done it, and you're essentially paying them to do what they would already do. But programs that change behavior that use intrinsic motivators, competition, other things, like I'm sure Communify has a lot of thoughts on this as a company in this space, but. I do think it's possible that financial incentives might not be what motivates a lot of people to change behavior. It could be with a certain population and certain types of behavior, so. Yeah, I think it's a tough space. It's like an intriguing pilot, but it's hard.
Yeah, no, that's helpful to hear, and I think that those are, again, things we want to dive deeper into when we do conduct this survey work and increase our outreach. I mean, we want to better understand the folks who are taking advantage of this platform. Were you already biking and walking to work to begin with, and now you're just taking advantage of this financial incentive program, or did you actually shift your behavior? So certainly something we want to dive into more, and happy to chat with you more offline about it too.
Okay.
Thanks,
That's
Reagan.
everything. Thanks, Reagan. Okay.
Thank you.
That's good. We're ending
Thanks, Reagan.
3 minutes earlier from last meeting. So that's-
There's a lot here. I have to go to my daughter, so I move we adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I actually didn't like to.